Hello everybody. Today is Tuesday, 3rd of September 2019, and as you can see, my benchtop is trashed again. But I know I said that I was going to work on the parking lot area around the car repair facility, but I guess I just decided to continue on with the stonework, the rock face, and been doing that for the last, I don't know, since the last posted videos. So a couple of weeks now, 10 days or whatever it is. Takes how long it takes. But I put together a little slideshow of how I did everything, and at the end a little video of some of the materials that I use. So stick around to the end and enjoy that. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Okay, here's where I left you off last time. I decided to go ahead and put a water feature in here. So we got the little cordless saw out and made us a big hole. Ended up had to clean up the corners a little bit with my hacksaw handy dandy blade there. I built up some 1/4-inch foam to expand down in. It went down. It's about 3/4-inch depth to the bottom now, to the top of the wood. I also added some more foam on the top of that as well. It's got plenty of depth for so you can have some visible sidewalls to the pond area. I ended up sealing everything in with caulking. Got around the edges really well. I also glued everything together with caulking and also some white glue in spots, but mainly caulking so we'd have no leaks when it comes to pouring the water feature in. And you see we got about 1 inch on one side and over 1.25 inches, 1 3/8 on the other side. It's 8 inches wide by 14 inches long, and so it's gonna have a nice little water feature there. Here I go ahead and start sealing everything off with my 14 gauge wire, and I'd used some old paper towels and watered them up in some glue. Let that sit for 5 or 6 hours or so before I put the burlap and plaster of Paris. Ended up coloring the burlap, the plaster of Paris with that. It lightens considerably, but it is nice when you come back and do your washes over the top of that. It does make it accepts the washes a lot better than leaving the white bumps. Here I'm using just some newspaper to go in between the different layers, between the upper tracks here. I figure you got to do your scenery, you got to do it from the top down, so that's the way the ballast likes to fall. I used some of that, some little gauze, and since it was nice strips and it's pretty sturdy, I used that in between the rails there. And then I also used a little pointed trowel to give it to define the rock face a little bit more. And because it was kind of thin, I didn't want to take the scratch all to that. I did take another layer of plaster and a toothbrush and go over the top of it to give it some nice texture. And I lightly took a wire brush over the top of it, but like I said, I didn't want to dig in too deep into that gauze and just start ripping everything off there. So it turned out pretty nice though. Here I'm experimenting with the India ink wash, just seeing what it does to it's a light colored gray plaster that you can see how white it actually ends up when it's light. Here I'm just experimenting with a bunch of washes. It still needs another 2 or 3 layers of rock put on it. You can see how I did my blobs here, and then kind of came back and wire brush everything in. Here's some more experimentation with colors, different washes. Golden wash I think I'm experimenting there with. That's got a little bit of a white or tan dry brushing on it. This just gives this is some white that I'm experimenting with, a little white craft paint. And here I did some I wanted to give it the blasted rock effect. So that side used a ruler, straight edge, and just went straight down with that, as per the Woodland Scenics rock face video. Here's just some more experimentation with a white tannish wash. It turns out pretty nice once you get everything blended in. This layer of this number 1 porthole here, the wood porthole. That outer rock face still needs another. I think I end up putting 2 more layers of blobs on that, and scoured that in with the wire brush. I was still experimenting with colors, seeing how I can blend everything together before I went for my final coloring. I wanted to be able to have a different color effect when you walk in the door, and not just an all gray face. You can see that nice distant photo there, that you can see how the colors or how they stand out. The trick is to get to blend in, so that when you on closer inspection, everything blends in together and has its own layer effect and everything. Natural color rocks, how I want to depict it anyway. Alright, here we are in the doorway of the layout. It's 13 by 13, and this is what it looks like from the doorway area, the new rock face. It's got some good coloration. That's another thing I was trying to consider while coloring this. I didn't want it to look just all gray. And I still got to do all the ballasting and groundwork, of course, but we're concentrating on the rock faces today. I did also do the upper section between the rails. And I got the plaster work and some stuff done between these rails here too. Rock face came out pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm still coloring this back section back here, so I'll be all blended. There's the pond area. I'm going to add a couple low croppings into here and chop this down a little bit more, and add a little outer cropping in here a little bit too, a little bit lower levels. I got between the tracks done here. Also, this is fresh. I just colored this about an hour ago with light gray powdered dye and water. And in this section here, I've got that was cast some time ago. I'm just still coloring it. It's got some golden yellow brown on it, a little bit of tan wash also. And as far as the items that I used, I'll start off here. The backing on this lower section here was originally just a piece of duct tape, about the first foot of it. After that, I decided to use what they call Coban. I got this from dialysis. They would wrap my arm in it because my arms are allergic to Band-Aids for some reason, so they would wrap my arm in this stuff, Coban, and it's real stretchy. It sticks to itself. Comes in probably about a 3-foot roll or so, but I got a bunch of rolls of that because they stick me twice, so it's got to be wrapped twice. These are the 2 main tools I used to create the surface, and the pick right here, create the lines and to pick out different things. Okay, the colored dyes. Those are, I got these from Douglas and Sturgis, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. We used them for various casting projects for resin and such, but I figured they'd come in good for the model railroad, so here they are. I mixed them up in with water. Just here's the black is India ink mixed in the water, and that's the gray dye there mixed in. There's a bunch of that in there, and if you keep it mixed, it doesn't fully dissolve in the water. None of these dyes really fully dissolve, so if you can get different types of hues off of how much you swish the water around to add to your brush. So, and I add a little red, tiny bit. That stuff goes a long way. And with the golden wash, which is this here, that's fresh over. I used white plaster on that. I do like using colored plaster a little better, even though it's not a deep, rich color unless you put a lot of dye in with it. It does accept the dye a lot better, so you don't have the white ridges showing through really. That'll cover up though, just a couple more coats. Plus I think that'll probably end up being a lot of turf in there anyway. So, but that's the dyes that I used, and the brushes. I mainly use this brush here that I also use for ballasting, cleanup ballasting, and this one here. When I came back, I'll come back, and that's kind of like my final brush to get into the cracks and crevices and to highlight different colors and hues. A couple more to get in cracks and crevices. This brush here I used to scrub in plaster. And I found that if you just do a real thin coat and kind of brush it on in between your globs, it kind of blends everything together. And some more tools I use for applying the plaster in blobs, mixing spoon. Different things that I use to cover with. This piece here is some thick, it's some sort of medical paper towel. I'm sure they're expensive as hell, but it's nice and thick. And I also used pieces of gauze. It also has some cotton fiber kind of loosely in there too to help absorb. Those are the little squares here that you unfold. And paper towel shreddings some places. And this is the main colors that I also use for some of the washes, which is some India ink and just some craft paints. And I also, like I mentioned before, I used 4 pounds of plaster of Paris for all my plastering projects so far. But I've also mixed in what they call marble dust, which is basically just a powdered filler. It has no other adhesive or setup qualities or anything like that to it. It's just a filler. It also makes it a little bit softer, easier to carve with, I think. So, well, that's the tools that I used and the project that I'm working on. There's the reveal will be in probably a couple weeks or so. I don't know, however long it takes me to get all the scenery done on it. I got my static grass applicator fly swatter thingy that I'm going to convert. And I'm going to try a little bit of that around this area a little bit and experiment with some static grass. I've got a few packages of that, so we'll see what we can come up with. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.